Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Gotham Rogues. In this video we take a look at the comic book storyline, Batman, My Own Worst Enemy. Batman, My Own Worst Enemy is a 5-part story in the opening arc of DC Rebirth's new All-Star Batman comic title. It was published in 2016 and was written by Snyder and penciled by John Romita Jr. In this story, the good side of Two-Face, Harvey Dent, has contacted Batman, his old friend, and asked him to bring Dent to a remote location where a cure for the Two-Face personality waits. Essentially, Harvey has a plan to get rid of his evil side once and for all, and all that needs to be done is get Dent to the location. However, that's a task a hell of a lot easier said than done. At the time, Two-Face is the one in control, so Batman has to kidnap the rogue and force him on the journey. But not only that, Two-Face has arranged some detours along the way. Obviously, the villain doesn't want to be erased from Harvey's mind, so he's threatened the entire state that he'll release information about everyone's dirty little secrets unless Batman is stopped. Apparently, Two-Face is a master at seeing people's ugly sides and has made it his hobby to collect every single scrap of dirt there is to find on everyone, even something as simple as an immoral web search. Two-Face has also promised to give the combined wealth of Gotham's 3 mob bosses, Penguin, Black Mask, and the Great White Shark to whoever frees him from Batman's grasp. As a result, Bruce and Harvey are chased on their journey by mobs of desperate civilians, cadres of bounty-hunting supervillains, and the trio of Cobblepot, Sionis, and White. So I've finally gotten to read My Own Worst Enemy. God damn it, I've been waiting for this. It was just released in hardcover here in Sweden. I have no idea why it took so long. I considered buying the single issues on mycomicshop.com a while ago, but each issue is like $4 or $5 there, so the 5 issues combined, plus the insane shipping costs, would have made it a hell of a lot more expensive than the hardcover I bought. Anyway, All-Star Batman is the only Rebirth title that I'm really excited about. I mean, it's a series featuring smaller scale stories, focusing on the classic Bat-Rogues, and my favorite, Two-Face, was the first one up. How could that not excite me? So what did I think of the story? Well, put shortly, I absolutely loved it, but I was also kind of disappointed by it. We'll get to the disappointment at the end and first deal with the stuff I really liked. My Own Worst Enemy is an absolutely crazy ride that never really stops. From page 1 to the last, it's just a relentless, balls-to-the-wall, badass trip. Snyder has described the story as being influenced by movies like Mad Max and Midnight Run, and yeah, I can totally see that. It's like those movies, but on acid and with Batman and Two-Face in it. It really is a unique Batman comic. I mean, how many other Batman road trip stories are there where the Dark Knight has to drag one of his rogues across the countryside with him in shackles, while simultaneously fighting all manner of colorful, oddball members out of his rogues gallery? I don't know, I can't think of any. For me at least, it's impossible to not love this idea. I suppose if I want to be negative, they squeeze in a bit too many villains. But that's really if I'm trying to be negative. This didn't bother me at all while reading the story. Well, maybe Gentleman Ghost, because he did absolutely nothing. His appearance was ultimately completely pointless. I also wasn't crazy about Killer Croc showing up, being portrayed as just an evil villain who wants cash. Like you all know, I prefer my Croc as a shunned and hounded tragic freak, not like some bounty hunter. They did the same thing with him in the Arkham Origins game. But other than those, I loved Firefly and Killer Moth. It's always great to see these two together again. Moth also for once actually looked pretty cool. If he ever appears in a movie, I hope he wears a costume very similar to this one. It's got a way more serious look, yet it still keeps the classic Moth colors. It would have been boring if they made the costume black or grey or something. Black Spider with his new robotic arms was also cool, and it was great to see him, as he's a pretty forgotten Bat-Rogue. I should probably cover him in that series. And then of course we have KG Beast, who is the only one out of the bounty hunters to have a large role. He's actually hired by the trio of Penguin, Black Mask, and Great White. Naturally, these 3 don't like that Two-Face has promised away their money, so they send the KG Beast on him. The Beast is portrayed as a total badass, on the level of Deathstroke in this story. That's not really how he's usually depicted. I mean, in Face to Face, he was even unceremoniously killed off alongside loser villains like Orca and Magpie. And then we had that lame portrayal of him in the Batman vs Superman movie, so it was nice to see the Beast be given his proper dues in this comic. Hopefully it will influence future appearances by him. I should probably do an underrated rogues video on him. I enjoyed the trio of mobsters, but I gotta say it was a bit odd to see Black Mask and Great White be so subservient to Cobblepot. They do come off as his bitches, even though they're not supposed to be. I know. All three are leaders of their own gangs, but here together, Penguin does really dominate the others. He's the one who does most of the talking, and even tells White to be quiet at one point. It's not something that bothers me too much, because if anyone out of those three is going to be the top honcho, it should of course be Penguin. He's way more of an iconic and classic Batman villain than either of those two will ever be. There are more bounty hunters and villain cameos in the story, but I don't want to talk about them all. No, let's get to the main star of this comic, Two-Face. So what this story is basically about is the idea that everyone has a dark and ugly side to them, and in the end it dominates their good side. This is what Two-Face argues, and what he's kind of trying to prove to Batman. Bruce of course believes the opposite, that there's good in everyone, and that in the end, this good will always prevail. He's kind of similar to the Dark Knight movie actually, where the Joker was trying to bring out the ugly side of people, while Batman believed in good. I honestly think this idea fits Two-Face a bit better than Joker, because it goes perfectly with the Jekyll and Hyde nature of the character. After all, Harvey himself was a good man, but he had a lot of evil seeping inside him, just waiting to come out to the surface. This comic does some absolutely fascinating stuff with Harvey's split personality. It's established that his two personalities slowly phase into each other over time. What I mean is, one side is dominant and in control for a few months, then it starts to slowly disappear, while the other floats up to the surface, allowing the two personalities to coexist for a while, until the other side takes its turn at the wheel for a few months, and thus the cycle continues. That's a completely new take on Two-Face's split personality, and I find it very interesting. But it gets even better. The story also suggests that during this phasing period, while both sides are present, the Harvey Dent persona will influence Two-Face into committing brazen, kind of small-scale crimes, like robbing banks and such, which always ends with Two-Face getting caught by Batman. So this is Harvey's way of fighting Two-Face. It also perfectly explains why Two-Face would commit such crimes. Now this isn't something I've talked about before on this channel, but you do sometimes have issues with Two-Face's motivations. Some stories portray him as nothing more but a coin-flipping gangster, but why would Harvey Dent, a DA who fought organized crime and corruption, become everything he hated? It doesn't really make sense for this guy to be a money-laundering, gun-running mobster. This comic offers a good excuse for it though, and explains that the Two-Face we see here, the one who's dominant and my own worst enemy, is the true Two-Face, a brilliant, pure evil schemer. This is what he's like when Two-Face is 100% in charge, and what we usually get to see is a Two-Face bogged down by Harvey Dent. I love these stories that pit the two personalities against each other, like No Man's Land, Nightwing The Great Leap, and the animated series episode Second Chance. It's a shame this isn't done more often. It really is a missed opportunity to write a character with a split personality and not make full use of the concept. Another new aspect this comic introduces is the fact that Harvey and Bruce used to be best friends when they were kids. They met one summer at a home for troubled children or something like that, after Bruce's parents had been murdered. Harvey was there because he had kept his father tied up for weeks in an attempt to stop the horrible abuse he was subjected to, and Bruce because he had planned to find his parents' murderer and kill him. During that summer, the two boys became like brothers and helped each other deal with their issues. It was a meeting that meant a lot to Bruce apparently, and that's why he cares so much about Harvey and why he fights so hard to get him to the cure. I think this past between them feels very natural and fitting to the characters given their relationship. If any Batman villain should be made into Bruce Wayne's childhood friend, it should be Two-Face. Plus, in the animated series, Harvey was close friends with Bruce and wasn't just Batman's ally. I also want to remember that there is a comic where they're portrayed as childhood friends, but I can't for the life of me think of which one it actually is. So let's get to the disappointment that I mentioned. Now this is a big spoiler, so if you haven't read the story, you should stop watching this video right now. Okay. So the cure that's supposed to remove the Two-Face persona isn't actually a cure. It's a compound that neutralizes the weaker part of a person, whether it be one's inner good or inner evil. And here's the real kicker. Harvey believes that he's the weaker side. Tired of fighting a hopeless battle against Two-Face, he just wishes to go away. Yeah, that doesn't seem very heroic at all. And he completely tricked Bruce. But the worst part is, Harvey has arranged for this compound to be dropped all over Gotham unless Bruce gives it to him, knowing of course that once he discovered what it truly was, Bruce would otherwise refuse. We're not sure if Dent truly would have drenched Gotham in this stuff, but just the fact that he even threatens to do so, and all for a selfish cause, because he wants out. I don't know, I really don't like this, and it kinda broke my heart when we got to this point in the story. I was enjoying it so much all the way up until then. I mean, to me it feels like Harvey's just another bad guy, kinda at least. If he was truly a good man and feared that there's no way to stop Two-Face, then he would have killed himself, taking Two-Face with him. But this way, he'll be totally unleashing the pure evil of Two-Face upon the world. Yeah, thanks Harvey, what a good guy you are. But that's the thing, he's supposed to be a good guy. The point of the character is a man split between good and evil. Harvey is good and Two-Face is evil. No matter how I look at it, I just can't help but feel let down by this twist. The way the story ends also makes me feel like the next time the character returns, it's going to be back to the old status quo. As for the art, it seems to be almost universally hated. I for one love it. I'm a fan of Romita Jr.'s style. It's very stylized and a bit abstract. I really like his work on Daredevil back in the 80s and early 90s, so it was awesome to see him draw Batman now. There are a lot of character redesigns done by him here, and most of them are good. Like I said earlier, I dig Killer Moth's new look, and I also really like the design for Two-Face. It's very unique, but with the regular suit, as opposed to his iconic two-tone suits. I love the red and black color scheme. I suppose this is meant to be what the true Two-Face wears, you know, when he's fully 100% Two-Face. If so, it makes sense, because it kinda looks like the devil's colors. I never talk about coloring in my videos, but I gotta do it now. It looks just amazing. I'm not sure what it is, but it's kind of like the book was painted with oil paints instead of digital colors. I don't think that's the case, but whatever technique they used, and by they I mean Dean White, because he's the colorist, I sure hope they keep it up. One thing I don't really like about modern comics is the sterile and polished look of digital coloring. In conclusion, I love the story, but at the same time feel let down by it. It's an awesome, very entertaining comic that offers some really fascinating ideas about the nature of Two-Face, but it also fucked up a bit at the end. What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments. And remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.